The kingdom of God is like a man living free as the sun moves above the clouds. Welcome to the channel where we discuss how we can live as holy men in a Western culture. And in this episode, I want to suggest to you a theory, simple but profound, for how to never feel offended again. And I want to hear what you think about it. First, we'll unearth the reason as to why do we feel offended, so we can better grasp the approach to become inoffensible. Now imagine we've known each other for years. We go way back. And I come to you, I'm like, hey man, can you give me €1,000,000? Most likely you'd say, no, I can't. If you can, donation link is in the description below. Why can't you give it to me? And you're like, I don't have that kind of money. Dude, I thought we were friends. I can't believe you're doing this to me. Don't I mean anything to you? Why do you always say no? You never cared about me. I mean, how fair is it for me in this scenario to feel all disappointed in you and angry and insecure about whether you really are my friends or not? It's preposterous, of course, because you can't give what you don't have. Yet this is exactly what we are doing all the time in pretty much all of our relationships, with our wives, our kids, our friends. So hear me out. Here's my theory. Every one of us has needs, right? And I talk about this a lot on the channel. It's at the core of what drives our human behavior, that we have the need to feel accepted, to have purpose, to feel appreciated. We want to feel like we belong, that we are loved. We're quite complex beings and we have many needs, and we're searching for ways to fulfill those. So what happens, for example, when your friend cancels another appointment to make time to hang out with you? That meets your need to feel valued. And now your friend opens up about his life and he's seeking your advice. Now you feel pretty useful. Your about-to-be wife is standing next to you at the altar, and she says those words where she commits spending her entire life with her chosen one, you. Wow. You feel loved and you feel wanted. In a meeting with all your colleagues, your bosses, complimenting and praising the excellent report that you've written. Now you feel respected and well thought of. And all of these relationships and interactions, they can make us feel good, and we find them satisfying our inner needs. But what if your boss criticizes your report in front of all your colleagues? You still feel respected and well thought of? No, you feel insecure. You feel ashamed. A couple of years into your marriage, you find yourself into a situation where your wife takes out her frustration on you. You always, you never. You feel loved and admired? No, you feel upset and defensive. Your friend is canceling on you time after time. You feel valued and useful? You probably feel rejected and lonely. And guess what? We don't like any of that. That's when we get offended. So here's how I see it. We get offended when someone threatens or damages our sense of fulfillment. When something someone says or does doesn't make us feel like we're accepted anymore, that we've got it all together anymore. We don't feel confident anymore. And when all of these things happen too much, we don't enjoy those particular relationships anymore. But what if your sense of fulfillment isn't based on them in the first place? Then they can't offend you. I've said it before in another video. No one can let you down if they are not the ones holding you up. So basically, here's the premise that I'd like to propose to you. You can only get offended by that which you have made your source of fulfillment. You can only get offended by that which you have made your source. But there is an extremely problematic dilemma that we experience. Now, what is that? We experience firsthand how certain relationships fulfill us and make us feel good. Whenever you hang out with those friends, they always make you feel like you belong. Your wife, I mean, you can't even list in all the ways that she has made you feel loved and appreciated. Your colleagues make you feel productive. Your church members make you feel confident about your beliefs. We have so many positive interactions with other people that we notice are contributing to our lives and that give us what we need, what we're looking for. So what do? We develop expectations for them to keep on giving what we need. I expect to get love from my wife. I expect to get respect from my son. I expect to get validation from my colleagues. But here's what we forget. And let me take the most extreme example to make this point. Can you expect from your wife to make you feel loved? Of course, right? Silly question. But what about when it says in the Bible that there's nothing good that dwells in us? When it says that our hearts are desperately wicked, that it says that we cannot even be subject to the law of God, which is love. The way I understand the Bible is that all we can produce on our own is selfishness. And can selfishness love? No, it can appear to love, but it's the corrupted version of love that's actually based on selfishness, doing things for others because of how it can benefit you. Whether it makes you feel good in the moment, you avoid feeling guilty, you want to keep the other party in the relationship satisfied so you can keep getting out of that relationship what you want. See, when we make people the source of our fulfillment, when we expect them to be able to satisfy our needs, it's like asking them for €1,000,000. They can't give it because they don't naturally have it. But wait. I mean, my wife loves me. Good. But if it's not the selfish version of love and it's the genuine, real deal love, it's not hers. And I don't mean any disrespect to your wife, but all she can naturally give you is selfishness and that selfishly motivated version of love. The true love that you get from her is God's love. Your wife is not a source of that love. She's a channel of that love. God is the source. But we're mixing up the source with the channel. See, people can never fulfill you. Only God can. And this is when we mess up. God uses people. He uses different channels to fulfill you, to meet your needs, to satisfy you. But that doesn't make them the source. It makes them a wonderful channel through whom God is doing a supernatural miracle. Because doing any selfless good thing doesn't come natural to us. It's nothing short of a supernatural miracle. And understanding this concept, this crucial nuance, will set all people free in your relationships. Free from your unrealistic expectations of them. And it sets you free from ever needing to feel offended again when they don't measure up in giving you what you want and expect. This is how our great example Jesus lived. Let me share this quote with you from my favorite Christian author, and I've fallen in love with this description so much, especially knowing that God wants this to be my and your experience too. Listen, Christ never murmured, never uttered discontent, displeasure, or resentment. He was never disheartened, discouraged, ruffled, or fretted. He was patient, calm, and self-possessed under the most exciting and trying circumstances. All his works were performed with a quiet dignity and ease, whatever commotion was around him. Applause did not elate him. He feared not the threats of his enemies. He moved amid the world of excitement, of violence and crime, as the sun moves above the clouds. Human passions and commotions and trials were beneath him. He sailed like the sun above them all. Yet he was not indifferent to the woes of men. His heart was ever touched with the sufferings and necessities of his brethren, as though he himself was the one afflicted. He had a calm inward joy, a peace which was serene. His will was ever swallowed up in the will of his Father. Not my will, but thine be done, was heard from his pale and quivering lips. What a life of freedom, inoffensible. A free man, moving as the sun above the clouds. Why? Because he didn't make people his source. He knew that God is the only one who can fulfill him. So when he engaged in relationships, it wasn't to see what he could get out of it, but what he could give. His focus was radically different than ours often is. When your wife is having a bad day, wrongly takes out her frustration on you, it's easy to feel offended and defensive. I didn't, you. But if you make God your source and you see your wife as a potential channel, you will not feel that the fulfillment of your needs for love and appreciation is threatened, because God fulfills you still. So now you're free to not get all defensive and protect your own. You can see, how can you help your wife? What drives her behavior in this moment? Does she need a hug? Does she need a listening ear? How can you be a channel for God to work through to satisfy her needs? When your son disobeys you, No need to take it personal. This is all he can naturally produce. See, how can you serve him? Put him on your lap. Make him feel safe. Be patient and calm. Make him feel respected. Be a channel for God to work through so your son can get the training that he needs. When your friend says something behind your back, when a church member complains on you, when an authority figure doesn't trust you, whatever happens, no need to feel offended. You don't need to take it personal. You don't need to feel that they are threatening or damaging your sense of fulfillment, because it's not based on them. Now, not being offended by what they do doesn't equal approving or accepting that. It can still be wrong or unfair what they did, but then they need your help and not your anger. Sometimes people are like websites. They're down for maintenance. They may have been a great channel to you before, but in this situation, they may be temporarily unavailable. And rather than getting all frustrated with them and distancing yourself from them and holding grudges against them, instead you can make yourself available to God in that moment. And he may be able to do that maintenance work in them through you. What a freedom to be able to live so selfless, like how we were designed to live. Not being so worried and protective over your own self, but instead to be focused on how you can be a channel for God to work through to bless others. If you want that and to never feel offended again, type in the comments below, I am making God my only source. And man, this principle doesn't just apply to relationships. In this video, I'm sharing with you how this idea of God being the source and everything else, potential channels for God to work through, can also improve your professional work life. And it's such a liberating principle that can transform you and your family. You don't want to miss it. Holy Men Club, stay focused.